Good morning. This is Bill from Curious Cars and Auto Europe. Oh God, it's already starting. Okay, it's Bill from Curious Cars and Auto House of Naples on a miserable, crappy Florida Tuesday morning. It's drizzly. It's actually not that cold outside. I don't know if this is another front blowing through, but we'll see. The car is wet. I'm dripped on. It's dark, but what the hell are we going to do? So you have to keep going. But I'm out here and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do this video on this '06 Bentley Flying Spur. First things first, this is going to be, I think, one of these dual videos. So this is a little segment for the Curious Cars guys, and God bless you for paying attention, being around, honestly. And I apologize that it's been so long since I did the last video. It's been a, kind of a crazy couple of weeks. I was up at the Mecum auction in Kissimmee, which is a name of a town that I don't like saying. It just annoys me. Kissimmee. I don't know if it's one of those Indian names or how they ended up naming it, but it really should be changed at this point. It would just be a lot easier if it didn't have two S's and two M's and two E's, and they should just name it like Smith, Florida, or Johnson, Florida, or, Schittsburg, Florida, or something more fitting to the town that it is. And I was up there looking at stuff, as Mecum, as you know, is kind of a traveling circus. On the big day, the end of the auction, they have all this fancy, great stuff, the Hemi Cudas and Superbirds and Mercedes Gull Wings and 300 SL Roadsters. But on the earlier days, they have some of the weird crap that I like, and I went up there with hopes of buying some, also to sell a few cars, which we did. I sold, what the hell did I sell? An Oldsmobile Coupe and a little BMW. Peter, of course, did better than I did. I mean, Peter's one of those guys that if he falls in a pit somewhere in the jungle, instead of like breaking his leg and being eaten by fire ants, he's going to discover lost stinking treasure or something. I am not that guy. When I fall in the pit, I'm going to not just end up, getting eaten by fire ants, but I'll probably break every bone in my body. I just don't have the same luck he does. It's just, it's just one of those things. But I did fine. I sold 4. I bought 2. I bought a Cinquecento, of all things, a 1973 model, and a Ford Thunderbird. I'm under strict orders for no more town cars. I saw that in the comment section. I've been doing too many town cars, and it's fine, but I like town cars, so I end up with them, and then I do a video on them because I got them, and what the hell are you going to do? I mean, you end up with town cars, you do videos on town cars, so I'm going to skirt the edges of that by doing a video on a Thunderbird soon. Maybe nobody will know the difference. But what else? So I was up there for a few days. It was fine. Mecum is full of great things like Indian restaurants and Asian massages, so I had a good time. And but I'm finally back down here, and that's good. And I thought, the hell with it. I'm going to pick something off the lot and do a video on it because I haven't done one in a while. It's been like over a week. And this Bentley Flying Spur just called to me. It just called out and said, do one on me. So I thought, what the hell? Here it is. What other news can I report? It's going to be a busy few weeks. We've got a Sebring race coming up, and I've done nothing, zero preparation on my tired old motorhome or the car. It's just been sitting exactly where I parked it when we came back from the last one, so I've got to get that thing ready. Do we have any more auctions coming up? I don't know. Probably not. So I got to go find some cars to sell. One of those things to, keep going. You just have to do to live. And I guess that's going to be it. So let's get going on this. This is a 2006 Bentley Flying Spur. And as I was sitting there and looking at it, and this is the reason I did the video on it, I thought, every once in a while you need to replace the family car. You're out there, you got a couple of kids, God help you. I don't know why you did it or how it happened, but you did it. You ended up with kids. Yeah, but there they are, and you need to transport them around in something. And I realized that for the price of a new, very base model Honda Pilot, we're talking like a Honda Pilot with window cranks, you could instead have this 2006 Bentley Flying Spur. This should be very easy to convince the wife. Really should. I don't think you have to work that hard at it at all. And instead of having this sort of anemic, SUV-ish thing that, you know, family transports around in severe boredom. You can have this almost 200 mile an hour, 4-door V12 turbocharged luxury barge that does perform brilliantly in such a way that's going to keep everybody happy and also keep everybody safe. Obviously, it's a very, very safe car. Now, you don't get to sit up high like the ladies seem to like. It's one of the first things you hear, like ladies and effeminate men say, I like sitting up high. Well, okay, fine. That doesn't happen in a Bentley, but it does give you still the sense of a command of the road. You still feel like you're somebody driving this car around, and that's important. So it is going to check off some of the boxes, hopefully enough of the boxes that you need to convince your significant other that this should be your next family car. And I can also hear what people are saying, you know, the maintenance costs are high. Well, okay, fine. You know, I'm not going to argue that. They probably are. I mean, there's no question about it. But that's not a drawback, it's a feature. I mean, something has to separate you from the peasants out there, and it might as well be the repair costs on your Bentley Flying Spur. You go back a century or so, and you have the founding of Bentley by a guy who liked to be called W.O. Bentley instead of Walter Owen Bentley. Obviously, he had the heart of a Texas oil millionaire or something. So W.O. Came from privilege. Oh, God, that's a word I hate using anymore. But anyway, he came from privilege. His father was very well-to-do, was a retired businessman. He was one of like 6 kids and had a knack for engineering. And at one stage, his father bought him an apprenticeship with a big British railroad at the time, where he sort of learned a love, an additional love for more mechanical contrivances, that sort of thing. He did quite well with the apprenticeship, learned a lot, but decided that the railroad really didn't offer him enough innovation. So he got into this, market of people who were building cars. And of course, back then, you're talking 100 years ago or so, cars were a growing concern and really where the most interesting shit was happening. So he did find a nice home for himself. He went to work for actually went in with his brother. They formed this little company selling, I don't remember, a DPG or some kind of French cars. And he loved the cars, but he didn't like the power they had. They weren't enough. So he developed an engine that went in them, and that made them faster. Then he was holding some kind of an aluminum paperweight, and he had one of these eureka moments that aluminum might be a great material to make pistons out of. It's lighter, it's more durable in terms of, high compression, high speed things. So, he put one together, had one put together, and it worked fantastic. So he took his idea to a British government on a wartime footing, saying, hey, look, this aluminum shit works really good in motors. Why don't we start using it in all the airplanes that we're building to take on the Hun? So they did. The British government sent him to go to a few different companies that were putting together aircraft motors. He made his sales pitch, and without fail, it pretty much worked. So even Bentley started building motors for the Sopwith Camel. So I think even Snoopy has something to thank W.O. Bentley for. And it all worked great. And then in 1919, after the war, he founded Bentley Motor Cars and started building these things. And, I have to say that the track of Bentley, to some extent, reminds me of some of the Italian stuff, the Maseratis and Ferraris and that sort of thing. Mr. Bentley liked racing a lot more than he liked building cars for people. So mostly what they did was build race cars. They were racing at Brooklands. They ended up racing the Indy 500. They ended up in Le Mans, and in fact they won Le Mans from I think 1924 all the way through 1930 and made quite a name for themselves. That said, it didn't help them succeed because in 1931 they went bankrupt and ended up being bought by Rolls-Royce under a shell company because Rolls didn't want anyone to know. But their racing heritage was epic. You may have heard of a group of guys called the Bentley Boys. They were very well-heeled, well-to-do cats that really enjoyed racing Bentleys at Brooklands and other places, and really made the cars quite famous by racing them. Also at that time, you had what was one of the mechanicians, the riding mechanics. You really have to love those guys. These racing cars were basically two-seaters. Road courses at the time weren't necessarily tracks, you know, where there was a central pit row that they could go back to. Some of them were very long, and, you know, there was no real support group. So these guys carried their mechanics with them. And, you know, they didn't have, like, seat belts, and they had, like, little leather helmets that accentuated any object that would impact with them. So these are some pretty brave cats, and a lot of them died. I mean, they just flew out of the things and crashed into stuff and died. I think Hemingway back in the day said the only true sports were motor racing, and what the hell was the other one? Bullfighting, of course, bullfighting and motor racing, and the rest are just games. And I have to say, you know, back then, Hemingway was certainly right. I mean, if you were racing a car, you were one brave son of a bitch, because there was a strong chance you were going to die horribly, either by impact or fire. But anyway, these little mechanics would hide off the side. They worked in place of a rearview mirror because nobody had thought of one yet, so it was much easier to have a mechanic look behind you. They also would navigate. They would bark commands. They would do stuff to help the driver get around the track and the course. And eventually, in fact, I think it was until 1964 you could actually have a mechanic with you in the Indy 500. Nobody did after like 1930-something, but it stayed in the rule books all the way into the 60s. But anyway, a little bit of interesting crap to think about. So Bentley was building these race cars, but, you know, like Ferrari, like Maserati, like all these other companies that did the same, it really wasn't enough to keep the company liquid. You know, they did have some street cars. They did have some stuff that the rich guys bought. Like, you know, Ferrari famously hated his, you know, non-racing customers, but he did it to keep things going. And Bentley tried that, but just not to the same extent. So Rolls-Royce bought them, and then that began maybe what could be considered some of the earliest badge engineering there was. The Bentleys became essentially a rebadged Rolls-Royce for many, many years, and Rolls-Royce sort of relied on Bentley's racing heritage to sell these cars to, you know, wealthy lords and ladies who wanted to be driven themselves, or sorry, drive themselves instead of being driven by a chauffeur. So a sporting English gent could hop in his, you know, rebadged Rolls-Royce Bentley with a 6-liter motor, 6.5-liter, and tool out to the countryside to his little cottage that had 41 rooms and molest all the chambermaids. So it actually worked out fine for many, many years. Actually, you know what? Have I got it wrong? Well, how did Vickers buy Bentley? Oh, for the love of God. You know, that's the problem with too much coronavirus whiskey. You know, obviously, we're still hearing about coronavirus. It's still going around. I've been taking whiskey to help myself not catch it. It's become in more copious quantities in the mornings, which is fine. It's, in fact, not just a nice way to prevent the coronavirus, but also a very nice way to help get you through the day. So, but it does sort of do little stupid shit to your memory and causes problems that way. Vickers didn't buy Bentley until 1980. In fact, they bought it from Rolls-Royce after Rolls-Royce separated. You know, Rolls-Royce went bankrupt at a certain point, and they had to get, they went into receivership. They separated the aviation division from the car division. Bentley went with the car division, and that ended up being bought by Vickers in 1980, and then by Volkswagen in 1998. And that really must have, there's Peter and his S560. You know, the guy, he just leads a charmed life. He really does. Really, really does. Bet he had the massage seats going this morning. Anyway, so all the way through 1980, Bentley was basically just a rebadged and re-engineered Rolls-Royce. And then they started to sort of rely on their racing heritage afterwards. And they came out with the Mulsanne, or the Mulsanne, I don't know how you pronounce it, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Which was much more of a sporting Bentley, and they started regaining some of their footing as a English company that built sporting luxury cars for perverted English lords, and that worked well. And in fact, sales figures, after having become very abysmal, started going up in the 80s and still continue going up today. So anyway, they got built through 98 until Volkswagen bought them, and that's when essentially they became a German company. I mean, we can sit here and we can look at this and we can deceive ourselves and pretend that this car is handcrafted in Crewe, England, you know, after having moved there from Cricklewood, where Mr. Bentley started everything. But, you know, in fact, the thing is more, you know, it's more German than Schnitzel, for God's sake. I mean, it is, you know, sent over from Germany to mostly be assembled in England and be called a British car. But anyway, we'll get into all of that. So Bentley started drawing on its racing heritage in the 80s. It worked out well for them, and, you know, everything has been tracking up ever since. Very, very cool stuff. What can I tell you? In 1998, they switched over to this stuff. They went from, you know, what was essentially the old hand-built Rolls-Royce stuff into creating and rebirthing Bentley for a modern era. You may remember the Volkswagen Phaeton, that ill-fated, at least in America, 12-cylinder model that was, you know, looked like a big stretch Jetta, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and I still do, because you pull up to the Ritz-Carlton in that thing, and they're trying to direct you around to the service entrance, you know, where you can deliver whatever it is you've brought to the hotel. But you know, you paid $100 grand for your VW, and you're not really getting the credit you deserve for it. Despite popular opinion, where they say it was Wolfgang Pike, the chairman of Volkswagen, rather a famous asshole, to be honest. They said he wanted to build the finest car in the world and did it as a Volkswagen. Well, not really. That car was essentially a test bed to develop this Bentley under the Volkswagen R&D budget, so Bentley could be more profitable more quickly, and it worked out fine. So this thing is basically a Phaeton underneath. The engine, which we'll get into in a minute, is basically two VR6 VW engines kind of hand-stitched together to create a big V12, or W12 as they call it, based on the configuration. Ever since 2012, Bentley has sold more cars to China than anywhere else. I think production in 06, when this car was made, was like, oh shit, I don't know, it probably had breached, almost breached 10,000 for the first time. Probably wasn't there yet, but it was close to it. But only about 3,000 or so came to the United States. So this one is one of 3,000. And so basically what you have is a German car pretending to be British so it can be sold to the Chinese. Oh, what a world we live in. Let's just get into this thing. All right, so here's the classic Bentley logo. Bentley was a little bit of a lazy bastard. He never actually copyrighted this logo. Rolls-Royce did it after they bought it in 1931. So up until then, anyone could have just robbed this thing. But you press the B, and the boot lid opens up very nicely. Now, I've seen some of these malfunction on the early Bentleys, where they go up a little bit, psych you out to start going into the trunk, and then they come down like a guillotine. I mean, they chop off your hand, they come down so hard. So I'm thankful that this one is still working. I'm surprised there's not a class action suit on that, with a bunch of people with hooks walking into the court to collect some extra money from Volkswagen. This is irritating. So here it is, back to the Chinese thing. So this German car assembled in England has a boot close button, which honestly you don't even really need to put. Everybody knows what the friggin' button's for. I mean, you've just pushed one to open the trunk, you're looking for a button to close the trunk. There's only one button. People are gonna press it to close but you know, this way they get to write boot on it, and that makes everybody think of fine English cars. So it's that kind of shit that just bothers me. But anyway, so there it is, nice big giant trunk. You see I have some crap with me, which is dwarfed in here. I've got my tire machine from the race car, my little air pumper. This, because I lost some work the other day on the computer, realized I didn't have a battery backup, and then the bag of crap I bring with me every time I'm doing a video. Underneath here we'll find a spare tire, probably too heavy. I'm not even going to get into it, but it's under there. You can trust me on that. Under this panel here we have a bunch of electronics and a battery, and over on this side more electronics and another battery. And remember, you know, maintenance costs, a feature. So when you're using this as a family car and people cry that it costs a little bit to maintain, you just have to remember that's what's separating you from the animals out there. So open the hood. Hopefully your wife will understand that. There goes the phone. That's like the 5th time I've dropped my phone in 2 days, and it still hasn't broken, which is a miracle. On this car, somebody has painted the hood. I don't know if Bentley did it for the owner or somebody did it or who did it, but they've painted it a matte black to give it that stainless steel effect, which I guess is something that's happened with some of these luxurious German-English cars over the past few years. You've got this beautiful, rich midnight emerald paint, which I absolutely love. It looks black in almost all lights until you shine something on it, like the brightest LED you could find, or one of those big lights that the British used to hunt for the Stukas and Luftwaffe in World War II. Then you can see it's got this rich green emerald to it, which is just stunning. But anyway, I don't know why they did it with it. I don't know if I can even do this one-handed. Probably doubt it. Oh, that's so dangerous, lifting that up by the B. Okay, so there it is. There is this W12, and again, W is based on the configuration, which is these two look at Dalton's detail under here. Look at this. We've got a leaf right here, some kind of leaf. He hasn't wiped down any of it. He's such a little asshole. I swear to God, he is the worst human on earth. And anyway, I'm not gonna, God, anyway. All right, forget it. Twin turbocharged, 550 horsepower, 430 pound-feet of torque, which, frankly, if the transmission could handle more, it could have another 100 or so. It's enough to pull out tree stumps and, you know, haul front-end loaders. This thing is insane. It is just an incredible engine to have in this car, and pushes it from 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds to a quarter mile in like the 13s or 12s, and then a top speed of almost 200, like 196 or 7 or so. It is fantastic. German cars all have this little gentleman's agreement that they're going to govern the top speed somewhere in the mid-150s. I don't know if it's for the Autobahn or what their reason is. So even a big V12 Mercedes, it's going to top out at 155, even though it's capable of more. Not so this Bentley. Nice little runaround from the Germans on that. They send it over to get assembled in England. England doesn't give a crap how fast it goes, so they let it breathe free all the way to almost 200 miles an hour, and that is part of what makes this car very true to the racing and sporty lineage that Bentley has to offer. And anyway, very neat big engine shoehorned in there. Definitely more than enough to haul you, the wife, and kids on a nice little family vacation, maybe to Kissimmee. Where you can, you know, go to Epcot Center and wear one of those stupid hats. But it's all very lovely under the hood. And there you see that incredible, you know, the fit and finish of the car genuinely is epic. I don't know if they're still using slave labor or who they're using to put these things together, but they are doing a very nice job. I also like that mesh grille. Is that closed? Yeah, it's closed. That does harken back to the early racing Bentleys that are now collected by very, very rich douchebags around the world. You can see the, you know, projecting HID headlamps up front. It's got little bumper sensors in there. It's got big 20-inch wheels with fancy tires that let you go 200. This was the world's fastest production sedan when it came out. It probably still is, you know, whatever the modern incarnation. Almost 16-inch brake rotors on this thing. Incredible. Do manage to haul the car down from high speeds to, you know, a stop almost as fast as like a Corvette Z06 would. I have to admit, it does have very nice flowing body lines. They resisted the urge of most of the German makers to make these big discordant surfaces and things that conflict with each other just into a nice flowing body line and roof, and you know, more or less the same front end as the Continental GT Coupe, but with a much longer, of course, stretched out rear end with plenty of legroom and footroom for, you know, the opulent guys sitting in the back. And they did all that, and it only added an extra couple 100 pounds to the weight of the two-door, so it comes in at a very nimble 5,500 pounds. This car, which is just insane. 5,500 pounds. Have a look in the back seat. Yeah, LED taillights, all very nice. It's got soft closed doors. I believe, yeah, there they go, same thing. Yeah, there they suck themselves in. Okay, so back here, and again, more dust. lack of wipe down from Dalton. You have enough foot room for Mean Joe Green, no issues there. You've got just expanses of rich burl wood everywhere and expanses of leather. And there's another thing I love about this car. It takes 11 cows have given their lives to put the leather inside this single car. And I love it. And you don't have to tell this to the wife when you're trying to picture this as the replacement for the Honda Pilot, because frankly, you've got you're looking at this thing, you've got Greenpeace, you've got PETA, and you've got the Sierra Club, all absolutely giving you the stink eye over the amount of resources used in this single car. And I think it's terrific, but other people may not, particularly your wife. So let's keep that a secret. You've got rear heated seats. You can see the little switches there. They're also air conditioned, those two buttons. And this is another thing about this car the Germans did, was every little knob and bit of switch gear in the car is all machined and not hand knurled, but machine knurled. There's no little cheap thing that you have to pull or touch. This is not plastic, this is metal. The switches, some of them, I'd like to think that even though they look like something that was used on the Jetta, and probably were, that instead they're sort of fabricated out of rhino tusk and elephant tusk and, panda bones or whatever they might use to, make you feel special. Beautiful big expanse of back seat. Let's hop in this thing. Yeah, a little guy like me has tons of legroom, so your Canadians are going to be extremely chipper back here. That's at least 2 or 3 full cows just in the headliner. I mean, that is a giant leather area for the leather, all the way from this D pillar down to the center pillar, down to the A pillar, all covered in beautiful, rich leather. These weird little push down, that may be just a place to hang your dry clean, and it's not a button at all. This thing, I think it defrosts the windows. It shoots out little vents here to keep it from fogging up. I'm a little upset that it doesn't have any side curtains over that beautiful burl wood. I would like to have something come up there too. I mean, what if you're on the street and you see street people? I mean, who the hell wants to see that? It would be nice to be able to press a button. Up comes this divider to keep you, again, separate from the peasants. You also have your rear climate control. Another place Dalton didn't bother to wipe down. Dual side. It has 4-passenger controls for climates. All of these vents are, again, metal and beautifully, sort of machined, and the buttons and whatnot. And frankly, it's just a lovely place to be. You also get this nice overhead console with more wood and more lights and more buttons. We have a center console here that's, we got some cup holders, lovely. And that's you might be able to, there, you can put a nice 9mm in there. That wouldn't be a problem. And a nice place also to rest your elbow. What do we have here? A little pocket for another gun. Who the frick is texting me that much? Bear with me a minute. I think this is the transporter. They can screw off. They'll figure it out. It's probably not their first time transporting a car. Look at this. I told Dalton, remove every single old man stupid blind spot stick-on thing that he sees on the mirrors. So, of course, he doesn't. He just leaves it on. I hate these things. I hate them. Just adjust your mirrors properly, and you won't need them. It has this very fancy key. Here it is, with the Bentley logo on it. Flip out. It's obviously German, but it's a switchblade, so you close it up, you open it like the button. When you're a shark, you're a shark. And you don't need it. It's more of this fancy stuff, the, machine-looking metal on it, but, it looks proper and nice when you hand it to the valet. You can lock it by pressing that little button and unlock it by just giving it a tug. You've got more of this fancy burled wood everywhere. You've got more metal switches. These are the same ones out of the Jetta, but they're now metal. You got a neat little map pocket there with more leather inside it. All the dead cows, it's fantastic. Where you can put more crap. You've got the same seat controls that were in a Phaeton. Again, very badly cleaned by Dalton. This gives you a massage, which is nice. And again, all the seat switches and all that crap are all very nicely finished. It's fine. I'm going to leave the door open when I fire it up. To do that, I'm going to put my foot on the brake and hit that start-stop. And it rewards you with a sound that, frankly, only a 12-cylinder could provide. This big high-torque starter with a strong whirring noise, and then a lovely little exhaust note that is enough to keep anyone chipper. The instrument cluster, you can see the blue reflection. That's because these are kind of crystally glass shit, you know, not the plastic stuff you find in the Jetta. And again, even though the buttons in the steering wheel are from a Jetta, I am sure they are made out of, like, you know, panda bone or, you know, leopard spine, or, you know, something beautiful that has then been crafted into something that looks like the Jetta. I hope so. Weird that it doesn't have automatic headlights. I think that's a bit strange. So you do have to turn on your own headlights. Maybe that's part of the idea that the Bentley is made for rich people to drive themselves and be engaged with the car. So automatic headlights is something more for the chauffeur. You got these fantastic little pull plungers for the vents to turn them on and off. They are metal, not plastic. Again, the vents are metal. Why do we have, what is going on here? Why is defrost on? So turn that off for a minute. It's actually pretty hot in here. And you've got the gauges you need with some Bentley script. You know, you've got a little over 6,000 RPM red line. You've got your 200 mile per hour speedo over there, which again is not at all ambitious. You got a fuel and temp gauge, and then a little driver information center in the middle where you can scroll through and get your speed, your current consumption. You know, if you're really worried about gas mileage, then you probably should buy the Pilot. I don't think your wife's going to dig what this thing gets for miles. Let's see how much range we have. 85 miles. That probably means we only have 40 gallons on board. But anyway, it's all good. You've got more leather on the dash, all this hand-stitched. You know, another cow, hopefully a nice cow, was killed to make that dashboard. Over here, you've got a Breitling clock. Does it move? No, it's fixed. You know, I don't know if it's a real Breitling or if they just put their name on a clock. You know, I'm going to bet the latter. Because that's just, hey, what does the Chinese guy care who buys this thing? I mean, it says Breitling, that's enough. Does it really need to have the innards of one? I don't think so. So anyway, it's a Breitling clock. There it is. You got the same nav and climate control unit that was out of a Volkswagen Phaeton. No reverse camera, again, which is odd, but you know, at this you'd probably have a couple of neighborhood peasant kids, you know, be spotters for you as you're backing up and throw them a shilling, you know, as you drive away. But we can go through what we got. We got navigation here, route guidance. I think it's CD based in 06, which, you know, frankly should have been DVD based, but you know where you're going. Who the hell cares? Use your phone. We've got some audio stuff. What do we have? We're on...
I like classic rock. Classic rock.
Okay,
Classic
let's see if
94.5, The Arrow.
What do we got? Hot-blooded. Everybody's working for the weekend, whatever. I don't know, that Foreigner air supply, probably Foreigner. Doesn't matter. A beautiful, giant, intricate shift knob here. It's got the B logo on the top. You've got more of this machine knurled wood or metal on it, aluminum. You know, Bentley did love his aluminum stuff. You push that to shift. You could go over and shift manumatically. This is a ZF6 speed, the same one you find in a lot of cars. Even the Corvette has a ZF6 speed, so pretty damn good transmission. And historically, you know, Rolls-Royce and Bentley, at least since a certain time, maybe the 60s, have always used General Motors transmissions. So this one's German, but you know, the old Bentleys, it was the one thing that really stayed together on them was the turbo hydroformatics. But anyway, all very lovely, big aluminum looking, you know, shifter bezel, electric parking brakes, which I hate. Give me a normal parking brake. More stitched leather all around. You've got your hot and cool seats here for the chauffeur. Very, very nice. This works the suspension. This will stiffen it up. What do we have here? Yeah, comfort and sport. It's an airmatic suspension of sorts. It's a Kareem Abdul Skyhook suspension. I guess something like that they call it. What it basically means, the Skyhook thing, is that the car is trying to keep a level line as it goes down the road. It figures out what a plane is, not an airplane, like the plane of the road. And any imperfections, it can make corrections based on each individual tire and wheel and suspension set of the Independent. So If you hit a pothole with the right front, it's not going to affect any of the other wheels and tires, and it's going to shoot the wheel down a little bit to kind of fill in the pothole and smooth out the ride. And I'd like to see your Honda Pilot do that. Under here, what do we have? We have a thing we can lift up, and that's where somebody has installed this. I think this is a Bluetooth setup, one of these parrot things, so that's nice. I don't know. That actually looks to me like it came with the car. I'd be very surprised to see that it didn't. So that must be the Bluetooth feature on Bentley. Under there, we've got a little place for a switchblade or a bag of Coke. You roll both of those up. Got a nice little roller thing back to find a place Dalton didn't clean and where you can put some cups. What a weird looking cup holder. Very, very strange, and not really a place you could store any weapons. Over here you've got, there's a remote control or some shit, and you've got the nav disk drive and the CD changer. And in here, you got an ashtray with nothing in it. And there's a Sirius, so I guess that little parrot thing also has XM radio, though I haven't tried to figure it out. Up top, what do we have? We have a sunroof with fancy looking VW control and more leather covering on it. Look at all that leather stitching. I have to admit, that really is pretty. You got a self-dimming mirror and more burl wood, and you know, the wife will like this. I mean, again, after you test drive the Pilot, come by and test drive this thing and see if she doesn't appreciate that it's just got a finer build quality than the Honda and uses, you know, slightly better materials. I don't know how many, why are we in sport? I don't want to be in sport and drive. I don't know how many cows it takes to fill up a Honda Pilot, but it's nothing like this. Let's see what we got. We still have, yeah, still those guys. All right, away we go. God, what a miserable, rainy, little pissy day. And it's not that cold out. It's been nice and cold for the last few days. Even in Orlando at Meekum, it was in the 30s one morning, which was just fantastic. I'd hit the wipers now, but it's just going to smear Dalton's crappy windows all over, and we're not going to be able to see anything, so I'll just let it be wet. This is Peter's little residential road where I pass deer all the time, so I'm not going to hammer it here. I am going to turn on the massage seat, which gives me a very nice little lumbar massage and makes me feel very elegant. And again, you know, make sure the wife knows that's there. It's not going to be super easy into convincing her this is a good family car, but you might be able to do it if you work at it. The massage seat is a big plus. That definitely isn't on the Pilot. It does have all-wheel drive, so all the wheels are powered, you know, through the transaxle, not like the one on an old Chevy. I gotta make it some AC going. It's pretty friggin' sticky in here. Oh, there's this. What's 79? I wish there was a quick, easy button for dual-side climate control so that one doesn't have to be... I mean, you know, some car, that Porsche I was in over the weekend said sync, and I could just hit that. I'm sure there's one here, but it's not immediately intuitive which button it is. I don't know if we have these... Yeah, there's the vents, now they're on. And that's kind of a loud fan for a $200,000 car. All right, let's see how that does. Got some ventilated seats as well. She'll dig that because I've got massage and ventilation. It was very cold outside. We have heat and the massage, which would be nice too. Okay, so let's see what Germany has to offer in terms of acceleration here. Hopefully there's no speed traps. And we're good from that end. Good from this end. Okay, there's 60. There is 80. And we're just going to keep going, and it would keep going all the way up to 200. Let's see what our speed limit thing says. Thank God we're not reading. Hopefully it's not directing that to any cops. But that's the point. Okay, so that was very quick breakneck acceleration that you really can't feel. I mean, it doesn't give you the same vibe that you get in a 911 Turbo or something where it's nipping your head back. It's, you know, you feel like you're really accelerating. This thing is more like a freight train that accelerates like a Corvette. I mean, obviously it doesn't spool up the way a freight freight train does. But it is so poised. Again, you're moving 5,500 pounds down the road. I mean, it is a very, very heavy car and very difficult to make it feel dynamic. But, you know, with all that horsepower, with all the driving dynamics, Bentley, Volkswagen, has done an amazing job of making this thing handle like a sports car. I can't do it now because there's nowhere to do it, a little track or windy road, but the turn-in on this car is tight and nice and lovely. It's too heavy to really drift through the corners, but if you know, take use of those big brakes and tire, this guy, we could really surprise him in his V8 AMG SLK. Wait a minute. Now, I know a little bit about SLKs, and I'm pretty damn sure none of them ever came with V8s, but maybe I forgot something. But anyway, the way this car handles and performs is something akin to some of the finest sports cars in the world. You know, your Z06s, your 911 turbos. Oh, listen to that. Instant red line. It does give you some very nice engine tunes when you're on it like that. I came off. I'm not going to be an idiot. Already been enough of an idiot. I think we troubled that woman who put AMG badges on her 3-cylinder SLK. She's kind of trying to catch up fast. But anyway, they've done an amazing job at making this car handle. So here's what it does. It handles well, like 0.86 on the skid pad. It brakes incredibly fast, almost as good as any sports car out there. It accelerates as fast as any sports car out there and does 200 miles an hour. So Volkswagen, Bentley, Volkswagen, the Germans, the British, whoever, have made this thing very in tune with what Bentley's design philosophy of the past would have been, and that was to build these very high-performance Le Mans type cars. I think Bugatti back in the day called them the world's fastest trucks. He didn't say it with kindness either, but that's what he called them. And to some extent, that still holds true. I mean, these things are truck weight, truck size, truck everything, and yet they do perform as well as just about any dedicated sports car that you could find. And that is a tremendous feat of German engineering. It really, really is. It's like having a good schnitzel and a nice pint of Hefeweizen. So God bless the Germans on that. God bless the British for supplying all the dead cows and all the wood and burl and little knobs and stuff. And you know, maybe we could just say this is a nice conglomeration of a peaceful, lovely economic union world before Brexit, where everybody was pretty chipper together, and you know, Angela Merkel and whoever was running the Brits at that time were hugging and kissing. So better times than they are today, that's for damn sure. I love the way it spools up. Yeah, that's fun. So anyway, good luck trying to convince the wife. Again, same money as a Honda Pilot for this once $200,000 Bentley, you know, that's handcrafted and crew, that's going to make the neighbors aghast, and you're going to have a lot of fun driving it around. It's big, it's safe, you know, it doesn't sit up high. Maybe we could put the air suspension in the high setting. That might fool her a little bit, but you can tell her that her and the kids are going to be very well protected from any incursion. It's got like 93 airbags along with its 12 speakers, so pretty cool stuff. 06 Bentley Flying Spur. This one's available at Auto House of Naples. If you have an interest in it, give the guys a shout. 239-263-8500 on the web at autohousenaples.com. Thank you so much for having a look. Hopefully the weather clears up and I have something fun to drive and video over the next couple of days. And I'm going to enjoy my massage seats and my trip into work. So take care, good luck, and we'll see you soon.